We'll call the meeting to order. Can everybody hear me? Good afternoon. It's great to see such a large crowd. We have 40 people that have signed up to speak. Would the board like to give them 2 minutes as opposed to 3? What's your pleasure? 2 minutes. Okay, 2 minutes. Do I have a motion for 2 minutes?
So moved.
Second. Motion second. 2 minutes. And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Brian, would you come forth and give us some highlights of the season and some areas that we can improve on? Overall, I think we had a good season. We did make some improvements. There was some issues, especially with the tents. Can you hear me? Okay. But we're always looking for ways to improve. So with that said, Brian, give us an update.
Would you like to start with the pledge and prayer, or do we want to just go ahead and get started?
Yes, absolutely. Let's stand up and pray. Father God, we just thank you for this day. We thank you for the beautiful weather we're having. God, we thank you, Lord, that we're your servants and we want to improve our season. We want to improve our beach activities for the locals as well as the tourists. We ask that you give us wisdom and guidance in all these things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Madam Chairman, Commissioners, I'm Brian Kellenberger, Director of Beach Operations. Appreciate your time this afternoon and really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you about activities on the beach and the beach-related municipal codes. Every year we go through this process where we compile the data that we've gathered. We take in public input through various committee meetings. That would be the Beach Management Committee meeting, the Destination Improvement Committee meetings. And then we have a post-season vending workshop where we take in more public input. We compile all this, and then we go to the Tourist Development Council where they review and add more input to this. And then we have this meeting here, which is the general public beach-related activities workshop to take in even further input. We'll then add that information to this list and come back to you at the November 7th meeting. I understand that meeting's been rescheduled to November 7th.
Yes, the first meeting in November.
Right, and so we'll come back to that meeting with the complete list where I would expect that this board would have discussions about it and decide on which items they would like to have included in a draft copy for legal to then put together, schedule a public hearing to then adopt those items. So today, this meeting will be strictly public comment, and if is any necessary questions that need to be answered, we can answer it, but I believe it ought to be just strictly public comment for what the general public here would like to offer up as how they see things and what problems they see and what solutions they think are viable. To get started, the information you have on your desk is our 2017 annual report. And if you flip back towards the back, you'll find a section that is the 2017 Code Revision Update. And what that document is, or this portion of the document, is a history and a narrative of how we started our season. And then it has a list of the items that were brought forth through the different committees. And so we'll start there. If you go to it's like this third page in from the back, and it has some red writing. Apologize for the non-numbered pages. I failed to hit that button on my PDF compiler when I was putting it in. So the Beach Management Committee is an advisory committee to the Tourist Development Council, who is an advisory committee to the Board of County Commissioners. And so we tasked them with really starting this process. Once again, we do take the data that we got off the beach. When I say we, Beach Code Enforcement, we use an interactive database. We put everything in there, and then we can regurgitate it into the different categories of dispositions. And we take all that along with complaints that we received during the year, and it tells us what has worked good, what needs some attention, and what may need to be omitted. And then so these different committees also do the same thing. And so going down this list, there was a few definition, additions or deletions. This information was sent to you previously, so I won't go through it in too great detail, but these were to offer clarity, to make it easier for the user to understand and for us to enforce when we have a problem on the beach. Number 2, there was some discussion about prorating the dog permits. As you know, those permits are $40 a year. The discussion was prorating them on a monthly basis. It didn't receive a recommendation from the Beach Management Committee, as in the fee seems fairly low, and even though they are from a certain time of year to the 364 days later, it didn't seem too much of a stretch for somebody to buy it at any time of the year. The next one dealt with general use on the beach, 2254B, so I'm on number 3 now. It had to deal with fires. Currently, there is no verbiage about grills on the beach, so South Walton Fire District offered up that we set or add some verbiage that would describe what type of grill is allowed and a size restriction. So they offer up a gas-type fired grill, propane gas grill, and no larger than 225 square inches. That gives you enough room to cook on, and it is not very dangerous. Roughly 18 inches by 20 inches. Your basic tabletop or tailgate size grill. They also like to add some verbiage for the bonfire end time. Right now, we allow the bonfires to remain on the beach until 8 a.m. The thought process was that they would be allowed to cool, and then the vendor would responsibly remove the whole unit from the beach and not dump hot coals on the beach. We don't have much issue with that. There's a little bit, but we would like to set an end time of 1 a.m., and then the vendor would be tasked with figuring out what is the appropriate extinguishment time so that he doesn't remove hot coals off the beach. Next item, 3B, deals with closure of the beach. Currently, South Walton Fire District, as lifeguard provider, is not included in the list of agencies that is in charge of beach closure. They are in charge of water closure with the flag system. So they've asked that they be considered to be included in the beach closure. As lifeguard provider, they are a vendor. As South Walton Fire District, Fire Department, and Ambulance Paramedic Service, they're tasked with the safety and health of residents south of the bay from county to county. The next item is personal property on the beach. As you know, we have a lot of people on the beach. Congestion is our biggest issue. We allow vendors to store their equipment at the toe of the dune, provided it is to be rented the next day. Or if you're a specific place vendor, you can store your items in a box. Well, the general public also likes to store their stuff at our beach accesses. When they see vendors doing it, they think it's appropriate. If we can't catch them doing it, we can't offer up a citation. We don't really have a mechanism. So this would be verbiage added to make it non-compliant to store equipment at a public beach access for the general public. There is an accompanying section for the vendor that addresses the same item later on in this. Sound amplification, currently it's 100 feet audible. There was discussion to move it 25 feet. Don't have a whole lot of trouble with loud noises on the beach. Generally, people can resolve that amongst themselves. It did not receive recommendation from the Beach Management Committee. Generators, there was some verbiage change from a 20-pound fire extinguisher to a 10-pound fire extinguisher. 10 pounds are more readily available at your retail stores, and we think that's an appropriate change. The next one is an item that was became a very large item last year, and that is tents. As you know, we restricted tents on public beach by a maximum size of 6 by 6. And then on beaches that are privately held, there was no restriction. And then if you're a customary use or a person exercising customary use, you're not allowed a tent at all. So it became very hard for the average beachgoer to understand what size of tent they were allowed, if they were allowed a tent, why that person was allowed another tent. And so as an enforcement authority, we would recommend that either tents be allowed or tents be prohibited. Size restriction makes it hard. If there is a size restriction, we would recommend 10 by 10. That seems to be the most popular. Next one was tobacco and products on the beach. did not receive approval by the Beach Management Committee. It'd be very hard to enforce. The next item down deals with special event permits. One of them is with fees. There was some discussion at our beach vending postseason meeting that the fee schedule we adopted last year, which is a graduated schedule based on number of special event participants, was aggressive. I think it's fair. Most people that use it believe it's fair. There are some people that don't believe that, but it did not receive a recommendation from the Beach Management Committee. The next item is that we still allow people that are not permitted vendors to apply for and receive a special event permit. There was a suggestion that we require a deposit for people that are non-permitted vendors. And the purpose behind this is to establish accountability. The problems we have with special events are usually around special events that aren't permitted by, or that are not issued or given to permitted vendors. So it's people that come from out of town that want to get married on the beach. They're not privy to all our rules and regulations, even though they're given a copy. So that would be one way to help accountability. Next item over is dealing with Section 2260, which is vendors. The first one is delivery vendor equipment storage. Once again, they're allowed to store their equipment at the toe of the dune, provided it is to be rented the next day. There's a lot of product on the beach, and it has shown itself in several ways. But so there was some discussion about managing that differently at public beach accesses, and then also some consideration where product has been delivered to a privately held beach. Next item is dealing with vendor permits. And so right now the vendor permits that are available are $750 a year, annual fee. We recognize that we have what we call a service type vendor that does not put a product on the beach, like photographers, officiants, music people. And so we would recommend that there be a what's called a service vendor type permit that has a reduced fee, from $100 to $250, and that would cover those people that are falling under the definition of a vendor. They're providing a service or a good for a fee, and make everybody operating under the same rules and regulations. Next item deals with the lifeguard zones and the vendor zones. Currently, our lifeguard, where we have lifeguard stands on regional beach accesses, we have a 10-foot clear corridor from the lifeguard station to the water's edge. We ask that that corridor be extended to the toe of the dune, and it gives lifeguards north-south mobility to get to our free corridors at the water's edge and the toe of the dune. Vendor zones, we've had some problem with our vendor zones delineators being manipulated both ways, and so we ask that there be some verbiage added to the code that makes that non-compliant, so that we can help enforce that non-compliant behavior. So our lifeguard stations are moving. That's one of the delineators, and then our small posts we have on the beach get moved either in favor or against favor of the vendor zones. So those are the items. There also later on after these meetings was some discussion about vendor setup time towards the end of the turtle season and not during turtle season. So right now the code addresses when vendors can set up during turtle season, April 1st through October 31st, and it's by turtle text time or 7:30 a.m., whichever comes first. The South Walton Turtle Watch, who is a contracted vendor for our turtle monitoring program, has written in their contract that they stop walking on August 31st, and therefore they quit texting. Well, as you know, our area, our destination has become very popular during September and October, especially October. And so it restricts the vendors to setting up until after 7:30, and that doesn't allow them enough time to get their product on the beach. So there should be some consideration for changing that, especially after October 31st. It then resorts back to 1 hour after sunrise. And so probably should have discussion about changing those times a little bit in that off turtle season period, and in that period towards the end of turtle season. So that's what was brought up in the meetings, and now I think it'd be appropriate to take public comment. And we have a person. I'll be writing down the comments, and Melanie Walters, our code enforcement administrative person, will also be taking notes. And we will compile that with the list we have.
Before we start public comments, do I have any questions or comments from the commissioners? I can just say up front, the tents were a real issue at our office.
Yes,
We
ma'am.
had more complaints, and of course, we didn't realize that the vendors, the Walmarts and the different places don't sell 6x6s. So
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to see those increased some way. And by all means, I want safe driving on these beaches. When they pick up their equipment, a hurricane's coming, I think we should do, there should be some kind of mandate that they better be safe, because we want to make sure that no kids run over or hurt. So
Yes, ma'am. That's one thing we realized over these last two storm events, is that there's so much product on the beach that the 24-hour mandate is almost impossible to do. And then just the efficiency of getting that equipment off the beach using pickup trucks driving down the beach is, the problem is just, a lot of product on the beach. It's very hard to get it off. So there needs to be some consideration for maybe an alternate method.
okay, and look at a plan for when we have a hurricane coming. This is the plan we'll use. And I know everybody gets in a hurry, and there's some uneasiness, but there's nothing more important than a child's life. So,
Right. We've actually, these past two storms, we started before the local state of emergency, so we did a voluntary period. And then, as you know, Nate, there was not a emergency local LSC activated, but we still asked people to get them off. So.
okay, all right. I think we're ready to start. I forgot to mention to silence your phones if you have not done that already. Thank you. Did you want to say something?
Sure. And just one concern, when we did have the voluntary, after the voluntary, I think mandatory to get the equipment off the beach. Did it become mandatory, or did it stay voluntary the whole time?
In a local state of emergency, it's written in the code that it's mandatory to remove all your equipment off the beach within 24 hours.
All right. I think we need to make sure that happens, because those become projectiles
Yes, ma'am.
if they're left on the beach.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe there's a way, if there was congestion involved with everybody trying to do it at the same time. You remember when you were in school, they used to say everybody with the last name starting at A and ending with M, you be here at 8 o'clock. And that, maybe we could give scheduled times for, so this group, go ahead and get theirs off, and then this group get theirs off, so they all won't be there at one time.
That's an idea. I think we definitely, will continue to do the voluntary time period. We work closely with emergency management, and people within code enforcement are very knowledgeable on storm emergency management procedures. So that helps. But I think the biggest problem is there's just so much product on the beach that it's almost not feasible to get it off in the way we're doing it. And we need to maybe research some other ways to get the product off the beach.
Maybe we need to look at the amount of stuff that's on the beach.
Possibly.
Okay.
Okay,
Ready
I like-
to start. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Odson Beverly, I believe you're representing Turtle Watch. Come on up. And after Beverly is Barbara Van Stavern.
I wanted to ask, Barbara and I have been working together for months preparing this presentation, and can she come up and show you the pictures while I'm talking?
Sure. How long is your presentation?
Well, we had narrowed it down to 3 minutes apiece, but I think if we can do it together like this, we can get it done in 4 minutes or
Well, if we can give you additional time if the commission's willing, as long as there's people in the audience that would let y'all represent the Turtle Watch and
No,
not.
we don't want to be the
Okay,
only representatives of Turtle Watch.
All right, well then you get
So-
2 minutes and she gets 2 minutes.
Okay, can she start her pictures while I'm talking?
Sure,
On my
absolutely.
2 minutes?
Yep.
Okay.
Do you all want the handouts of the photos first?
Yeah, get those.
All right, now start their time. Thank you.
As I said, I'm a Turtle Watch volunteer. Our beaches are a major nesting area for sea turtles, who are among the oldest creatures on Earth, but they are now in danger of extinction, primarily due to man's encroachment on their nesting habitat, and that's happening right here. And a big cause of this has to do with all the things that are being stored on the beach that Brian was talking about. So having the vendors' equipment stored right there in the grasses and at the toe of the dune, which is where the turtles really need to nest, having the vendor equipment there has led to the general public leaving their stuff there, and then you get all the trash and everything, and code enforcement can't possibly sift through all that stuff every day and see what's permitted and what's not. And this is having a negative impact on the turtles, who are very often not finding a place to nest at all after they crawl up around all this stuff. And it's also having a negative impact on the other creatures that live in the dunes and the dunes themselves, which we need as protection from storms. So we have some suggestions. Nothing should be left on the beach overnight, including this area at the toe of the dunes. And I know this would require the vendors to revise their business model, but it can be done. They could store their stuff at the houses that subscribe to their services. They can have rental units if they need to. They can hire more people, which have raised their prices. This market would bear it. Have more employment. No ghost chairs. A lot of times they take them out there. As soon as Turtle Watch clears the beach, you have vendors' chairs lined up all the way up and down the beach, and so the people that don't use vendors' chairs have to get there at like 5:30 in the morning to put their own stuff out there if they want a place on the beach. So if the vendors were required to set up only when the people are there, it would help. We just want to try to help the turtles because extinction is forever.
Did Ms. Van Stappen want to say something?
Well, I was just gonna, I have no words. My pictures speak
Okay,
for
well, you
all.
get two, if you want to say her words, it's a presentation together. You have 2 more minutes.
Oh, okay. All right, so here's an example of the people setting up at 5:30 in the morning. They either do that or they leave their stuff out there all night, and that's not good either. The people that rent the boats and the stand-up paddle boards and all that, they need to get their stuff off the beach as well. That's a big problem. So if no equipment were stored by the vendors, it would be easier to educate the general public that nothing is supposed to be out there, so that every night the beach is completely clear all the way up to the dunes and in the edge of the dunes and everything. The whole beach is clear, and this would be better for the beach, for the enjoyment of all the people who come here, for those of us who live here, and especially for the turtles. The whole world is trying to save these turtles. So we here in Walton County can take these measures to help to preserve their nesting habitat instead of allowing it to be trampled daily. And that's what we're hoping you will decide to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm Beverly Otzen, and that's Otttzen.
And Barbara, will you state your name and spell your last name, please?
Barbara Van Stavern. Van Stavern is 2 words. It's Vanstavern.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom King. And after Tom, we have Laura Reichenbach.
I would ask you just to...
Mr. King, could you state your name and spell your last name?
Yes, Tom King, King. I live in Rosemary Beach, and I'm a turtle walker in my 3rd year. Visualize with me, 1992. A mama turtle comes up, no holes, lays her eggs, the hatchling leaves 60 days later. There aren't any lights to cause it to go to the wrong direction. It goes out to sea, goes all over the world, and out of its nest of, say, 100 survivors, in 1992, it comes back, and it's likely the only survivor among its siblings. It comes back in the middle of the night, may fall in a hole. If it doesn't fall in a hole, it may hit chairs. If it doesn't hit chairs, there may be a boat, there may be other matters, there may be people out there, not with red lights, but with white lights. There may be people harassing it due to trying to encircle it or sit on it, may run into a fire, may not come to the beach because there's a fire. Anyway, over the last 25 years, where this young turtle has matured so that she can come and recreate life, then she runs into these obstacles. We had 76 false crawls and 127 nests. Now, probably back in 1992, the number of false crawls was perhaps 20, but a false crawl mostly is caused by an obstruction, someone disturbing that turtle trying to recreate life.
Thank
And
you,
I would just ask
thank you, Mr. King.
Thank y'all so
Thank you.
much.
Lori? If you hear the buzzer, if you would just finish your thought, I'm not going to stop you in the middle of a thought, but finish that thought, and then if you would be courteous and step down. Thank you very much.
Lori Reichenbach, Reichembach. I have a different topic today. At one of the beach vending discussions that I attended, there was commentary regarding beach vendors who do not follow the rules, who are cited and fined, and consider that just the cost of business. To my knowledge, what I understood, there is no repercussion, and they can continue with violations, with fees, and just pay those fees and keep on marching down the road. I do understand there is a professional group of vendors who are coming together to self-police, and I understand that that works fairly well. So for the odd vendor that can't possibly follow the rules and is part of the disruption on the beach, I would ask this commission to consider a 3 strikes you're out rule. If you get 3 fees, then you should lose your registration for the rest of the season with consideration of not being able to vend on our beaches the following season. We play by the rules or you don't get to work here. That's my request, that you consider something along those lines so that beach vendors don't continually just ignore the rules, pay their fines, and go about making their money. Thank you.
Did you get her name? Okay, all right, thank you. Robert Fusner?
It's Robert Fusner. Last name's F as in Frank, U.S., Z as in Zebra, N-E-R. I just had a quick question, and I apologize for being kind of just up in the air with it, but I offer chair and umbrella rentals, and I was wondering if it's okay to, my customers purchase those online, if I was to also provide like water, and they can purchase water and I can deliver that with the beach furniture.
Currently, vending of food and beverage is not allowed on public beaches. So under the ordinance as it is right now, if you're on a public beach, that wouldn't be allowed.
Okay.
Right, Brian? Did I say it? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Matt Houston? State your name and spell your last name, please, sir.
Yes, ma'am. I'm Matt Houston, spelled Houston. I am the founder and CEO of a app called Beachy, and we've talked to a couple of you before. Our core competency is solving a lot of the issues that you guys have, not turtle related, but much more beach vendor related, as you call it. Flew in from Nashville today, more to listen than to talk. But what we do is we map beaches. We've already mapped all of the beaches in this area and provide logistics for the commerce that occurs on those beaches. This is not a business pitch. We have no interest in making any profit off of the solution that we would uniquely provide here. A lot of our existing technology is made for much more of what you guys call the RFP process. For us, there'd be a small amount of unique development required, but we would be able to eliminate this very weird need you have for the rush to the water's edge and allow consumers to go through more modern methods of purchasing to reserve certain sets, almost like an airline seat, and with all of the vendors, very friendly to small businesses and large, not eliminating any of the problems there. So much more here to make you aware of our presence. As changes occur, feel free to reach out to us. Anyone on my team, we have some local team members that live here. My co-founder was born here, and we are Nashville-based. But I can come in on a Southwest flight very cheap anytime you need. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Matt. Sharon Maxwell?
I'm Sharon Maxwell, Maxwell, South Walton Turtle Watch. This year for us was absolutely astronomical. Last year we had 57 nests. This year we had 127 nests. We still have nests on the beach that we hope will hatch. As stated, 76 false crawls. We just know that between the increase in tourists and people using the beach and the increase of sea turtles using the beach, and the sea turtles are coming up higher. They're all the way up to the dunes nesting. So we really need to hash this out and get some, 10 feet between vendor boxes seems like a lot, and that was done. That's like the sand fence rule. It was done so the sea turtle can come up and can nest, and then if she bumps into things, but she can get back to the water. Well, the problem is sometimes those boxes are there, but then between the boxes is all sorts of things. So we need some new regs, and the one vendor putting things in the dunes, it is supposed to be parallel to the beach. They are not putting them parallel to the beach. We specifically added that last time. And then how do you enforce if the public puts things in the dune? How do you get them to put them parallel? We've got to be able to get sea turtles up to nest. So we do have a problem, and it's time to take care of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Perpendicular.
Mansell.
Not parallel.
Okay, perpendicular.
Yeah. Other words, this way, not this way.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you for your work. Mansell White. And after Mansell, we have Eric Johnson.
Mansell White, 182 Montgomery Street, Mansel, last name White. I'm here to talk about the clause in the beach vendor ordinance called, generally referred to as D8 or D8-2260. That's the clause that refers to the right of the upland property owners to determine whether or not vendors can set up in front of their houses. I'm a beachfront owner on Montgomery Street, been property owner since 1964, and I'm a permanent resident there. And I have chosen to not extend permission to any vendors to set up on the beach in front of me. The reason for this is only one reason. I'm looking to preserve some of the beach for the visitors and the neighbors who bring their own chairs and umbrellas. As we've talked about today, most of the vendors set up at the crack of dawn, 6 o'clock, 6:30. I see them every day. I go every day and I see them. And this year I had pretty good cooperation. Only had to involve code enforcement once for a vendor who wasn't cooperative. Most have been very cooperative, and I'm very appreciative of that. I'm not looking to hurt the vendors or impinge on their right to earn a living, but I am looking to preserve the right of the visitors who come here and bring their own stuff, which is most of the people that go to the beach, to be able to have a spot on the beach without having to walk 100 yards to get around the phalanx of umbrellas that peppers the entire beachfront if it's unregulated. My understanding is that this part of the ordinance was put in there as a quid pro quo for beachfront owners to give easements for beach restoration, which is going to happen. We just almost dodged the bullet in the last couple of weeks. We will have a need for beach restoration in the future. Anything that might diminish the ability to do that is going to really jeopardize everybody's future. And that's why we need to keep that part of the ordinance in there, the D8 ordinance clause. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mansell. Eric Johnson.
I'm going to pass out.
Tiffany Hughes. HUG HES.
So I just wanted to touch on my main issue would be lack of enforcement and lack of dissemination of information to the tourists. Everybody speaks of, oh, well, maybe we shouldn't allow vendors to have their equipment because it tells the tourists that they can do it too. Well, even if you don't allow the vendors to do it, what's going to stop the tourists from doing that as well? Nothing, because nobody's out there telling them no. On my property this summer, I made 23 reports to code enforcement about tents on my property. 15 times, nobody showed up all day. I have webcams, I can watch it, I know what's going on. So that is 65% of the time, nobody showed up. Now, these no tents were put in as part of the customer use ordinance. So that was already stated that a tent was not customary. Now we're speaking about, well, it's too hard to tell people that they can't have tents. So instead of looking at solutions of how maybe we can educate the public and make a change, let's just let them do it because it's easier. And they all know it. The problems for the turtles are never going to stop because nobody tells them no. Nobody does a thing. And that's your problem. And until you make a change and actually enforce things, you're never going to have a solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Heather Cleveland. Heather Cleveland.
Hey, good afternoon, y'all. Heather Cleveland, Cleveland. I am the Director of Event Management for Sandestin Golf and Beach Resort. Glad to be here with y'all today. I do have some documents that I'm happy to provide to you, or I can email them afterwards. Obviously, Sandestin is in business to drive tourism to this area, to promote our beautiful beaches and all of the activities that we have. We also want to be a good community partner. We're obviously sensitive to what the South Walton Turtle Watch does. We think they do a great job. The biggest issue with beach event permitting, obviously I'm in the arena of special events. We have a problem with permit regulations for public versus private beaches. Sandestin is a private beach, thereby we should fall under different guidelines for how we manage events. We've been in business 40 plus years. We have a successful track record and history of managing successful events and being a good community partner. In the past 3 years, we have filed for an annual beach permit fee, meaning we paid you one fee. We were allowed to host all of our events. I provided that list to our friends with the TDC and with Planning and Development, depending on who was in charge that particular year, of all of our events, and then updated that report to let you know if we added anything. You knew what time we'd be on the beach, what time we'd be off the beach. I understand another big issue right now, obviously, is event lighting. We do have a system for that, and it's very vague in your regulations what we're allowed to do. Please understand that our lighting fixtures do have the ability to be dimmed. We also have the ability to put different light bulbs in them that would be Turtle Watch friendly. We are willing to work with you on that. We just need somebody to give us some guidance. Most important, what's in my data right here is our revenue report for the year. The groups that hosted events on the beach with us total spend $2.5 million in our community. You received at least 7% of the taxes off of that, plus bed taxes. I have 5 testimonials of groups that said they will not return if they cannot do their beach event. $2.5 million that will go somewhere else if we do not find a solution. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Heather,
yes,
tell me,
ma'am.
did the one-time permit work well for y'all, that accounting?
Yes, ma'am. It
Good.
sure did.
So you don't want any changes?
Yes, ma'am, because these groups do not want to pay per event. If we have an annual fee, then we can split that annual fee among all of our groups, which is fair and reasonable. We absorb that cost as a cost of doing business. If you require us to do an event by event fee, we're going to have to push that off onto the customer. That's what a lot of them are upset about here. Plus, it's very timely and consuming for us to have to come and file event by event when we can just provide you a list of exactly what's going to happen at the beginning of the year and then send you a revision to that every 30 days.
Okay, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Chip, would you like to speak? Chip Coble? Where are you? Pass for right now. And at the end, I'm going to make sure that I haven't missed anyone. Eddie Mitchell? And after Eddie, we have Celeste Cabina.
My name is Eddie Mitchell. I have beachfront property at 350 Sand Cliffs. I'd just like to thank the commission for having the rules that they have to protect the beaches of South Walton. We all know they're special beaches, and to have meetings like this and let the public participate and just know what's going on, I'd just like to thank you.
Thank you. It's very nice to hear positive comments.
Mr. Mitchell, could you meet with me after this meeting? Do you have somewhere you have to be, or can you meet with me
I
after
sure
this meeting?
can.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Celeste?
Celeste Cabina, Cobena. I have concerns with code enforcement trucks on the beach, particularly driving on Topsail Preserve and Deer Lake State Park. I'm seeing them out there. My neighbors are seeing them out there at Topsail early in the morning, late at night, when there's basically nobody on the beach. These are areas, both Topsail and Deer Lake, where as you're seeing, those are the only places where we're going to have any habitat left for the beach turtles, the beach mouse, or anything else, even the beach crabs, because the trucks go up and down all day. I think what you need to do, and I'm hearing from people, that there are areas of the beach where there really are concentrated problems. So I think code enforcement needs to sort of target those areas rather than be driving up and down on the state park beaches. I've got the report from Jeff, and they were able to delineate where some of the wildlife lighting complaints were. So imagine they've got a list of where the hot spots are for problems. That's where code enforcement really needs to be focusing. And I think, in fact, in the management plan for Topsail, they're looking at ameliorating all of the driving on the beach. And I think that that's something that code enforcement needs to look at. I spoke with Jeff last week about this, and I even suggested, I said, I see him in the big trucks going up and down, and then I see, whether it was the beach ambassadors or what, but they're in a four-wheel drive vehicle. Well, Jeff said, well, they have to basically carry computers and printers and all this in their truck. I'm thinking with technology, there ought to be a way that they don't need to be in the big trucks. Everyone now just has a phone and does everything on their phone. I don't see why code enforcement can't do that.
Celeste, how about garbage? Do you want someone down there picking garbage up?
Well, here's what I see, and I saw it just last. The garbage truck does not drive across Topsail. He turns around there at Stallworth. So there's no need for the garbage trucks aren't doing it. It's just code enforcement, and I guess the sheriff occasionally. But obviously they're not meeting the demands of the people that want them out there. While I don't know how long it takes them to drive across Topsail, but there's nothing out there, and they're just spending an inordinate amount of time doing that.
Thank you very much. Noah Vickers? Noah? And that's all I have that signed up now. If you still want to speak after Noah, I'll ask for a show of hands.
Hey, I'm Noah Vickers, Vickers. So I'm a beach vendor. I don't do beach chairs, umbrellas. I just do beach fires, kayaks, paddleboards, and we do bike deliveries. So with that being said, one of the biggest things I'm noticing is the vendor zones, especially at night. We're setting up fires and stuff like that. I'm showing up. People want the sunset. Okay, so you show up to an access. There's beach chairs packed full at that access. So sometimes my clients are having to sit there and kind of wait, like, hey, when is this going to get going? Like, I don't want to touch other vendors. Sometimes I'll contact the vendors. Hey, there's chairs out here. Can I tear it down and set it off to the side, out of the way? Yeah, cool. That's fine. Whatever. Another thing I'm noticing is my clients are getting very frustrated at the bigger accesses. I try to do regional accesses, makes it a little bit easier. Is they're very frustrated because we're packed in 3 or 4 fires in one little area. There's half the beach that's not even been used. So to them, they're like, typical, government getting their hand in on the pie. Things are going wrong. it's sad to see. And they're sitting here telling me the same type of situation. I'm going to take my money somewhere else to spend it because, this section here, literally, in their mind, they don't understand it. I understand that it is good for the beach chairs in some aspects, and it's bad in some aspects. And I think we need to come to a conclusion on that. The next thing is just like special events permits. I think it needs to be more like guideline, because we know Atlanta Spring Break, there's going to be 20, 30, 40 people that all know each other wanting to do a fire. Well, if that's all they want to do instead of a wedding or reception or whatever, what's the guideline there to break that in two, to say, hey, this is just literally family and friends that's just hanging out for a bonfire. It doesn't matter if it's 5 people, 20 people, 30 people, 40 people. I guess there's need to be a little bit clearer lines on that. And then I guess that's pretty much it. So I would just like to, say that we need to address the vendor zones, maybe have maybe 2 hours before sunset or an hour before sunset, put a time limit on it. Say vendor zones are open. Yes, we still have a limited availability for 4 bonfires for vendors at this access or whatever it may be. Just open up the access for everyone to use.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Lisa Bausch?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Lisa, B-O-U-S-H-Y. I'll try to run through these really quick. I did not hit on the ones already done. If one of the things that would help on the vehicles on the beach in general, no matter whose vehicles they are, is if they could stay as close to the rack line as practical when the beach traffic is light. I mean, obviously in the summer when it's packed, that's not feasible. You do the best you can to stay, as far seaward as you can. Tent congestion, I would strongly urge you to ban tents versus trying to figure out a way to have them here or have them there, not have them in other places. But obviously that's your decision. Right now we're trying to create peace on the beach, and for the private property owners, customary use is requiring that private property owners complain and file a report online, which is the online system is not the issue, but it doesn't bring peace to the beach when people think you're complaining about them. So I'd like to see some other methods, and one such thing would be to allow us to do similarly to what we have for beach vendors on private beaches, where we could map it, and Brian's group would know what areas of the beach do not allow certain things, specifically tents and that sort of thing, without having to complain every time. Signs. I know that nobody wants signs. That's a given. But we need something at the top of the walkovers and at the bottom of the walkovers that tell people, are they on private beach or are they on public beach? Because we have signage that's confusing. We have the beach activities ordinance, which mentions tent sizes. Can I finish this, Cecile?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. And then on the other hand, we have the customary use that says no tents. And so one gentleman that I actually met that actually read all the signs said to me, I'm confused. Can I use 6x6 tents here or not? And I thought that was a great question, so I wanted to mention it too.
And Lisa, I was hoping out of the committee that would be a recommendation of that committee is signs at the toe of the dunes, certain size, uniform looking, so that we didn't have different sizes, different signs way out in the middle. We never got quite that far, but that might be a project that we could take on.
Well, I think
later.
You have several of us that would be most happy. Are you talking about the customary use committee?
Yes, absolutely.
I think you'd find a number of us would be happy to help with that. Sure. I've got a few more, but what I'll do is send you an email so I don't take any more time.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, the hand back here. Hey, Philip. Philip was the gentleman that started the policing.
Good to see you all again. Philip Poundstone, Poundstone. Myself, along with several other individuals, started the actual South Walton Beach Services Association this past year. I'm also on the Beach Management Committee, and I'm an owner of a small beach vending company. The main thing that I want to focus on with all of you is just the facts. We've done this 3 or 4 years now in a row. And out of the 3 or 4 years that I've been here that I'm part of this process, this has been the best year. I went to the Beach Management Committee. I was at the TDC meeting. I'm here. I'll obviously be at the BCC meeting. And what I hear from the TDC and Mr. Bryan and his crew is, hey, job well done, everybody. This is the best year we've ever had. The facts support that. We've had less code enforcement complaints this year, while yet having more tourist visits. I would personally believe that we've had a better relationship with locals, us as vendors. I think there's been a significantly better camaraderie and synergy among the vending industry, which has once been people butt heads and don't like each other. I think we've come together and worked well. Something super exciting that I'm excited about is increased turtle nests, that we've had the most we've ever had. We have significantly better relationships with code enforcement. As Mr. Bryan always says, he's after the elusive harmony on the beach. I think, sure, we've got room to go, but I think that's been significantly better. I think the two reasons that we've done that has been because of the association we created to clean up our own act as vendors. And two, I think increased code enforcement has been extremely successful. So therefore, I don't think we need any more regulations and laws. I don't think the government is the savior to the people that's going to fix everything. I think the people, us in this community, are going to be the ones to fix that. As the Beach Management Committee recommended, as the TDC committee recommended, pretty much the overlying tones of those is please don't create more over-regulation with more rules. I think we're on a good track, and I think we're going to get there together.
Thank you, Philip.
Thank you for your time.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am, come on up.
Hi, Carolyn Zonia, ZONIA. Madam Chair, Commissioners, just a couple of comments. I'd like to second the motion that somebody made that these problem vendors, that they be given maybe 3 strikes and then you're out, because we do see it's the same people over and over again. I'm also one of the turtle walkers, and we see the same people, the same vendors over and over again, that even when you try and talk to them or have code enforcement come and issue a citation, that is just the cost of doing business. And then the other thing I'd like to comment on is the request that was made to just try and pay one fee for the whole year and have multiple events.
That would only be the large businesses like Sandestin, Rosemary Beach, those big vending places. That was the system we worked out last year. But go ahead with your comment and give her a little bit more time.
It just seems like, if they're making $2.5 million, that they should be able to pay for these events. So that's my request. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am, come on up. Betty Lasher. Betty, you're next. Betty Lasher says.
Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, my name's Mary, M-A-R-I, Dar, D as in David, A-R-R, Welch, W-E-L-C-H. I'm just going to play a little devil's advocate. I've watched along the beaches. I'm a photographer. I've been a photographer for 20 years. I've seen our business change immensely. We no longer have tripods, stuff like that. For your code enforcement, what type of education are they going to have to know whether a beach vendor is a vendor or a family person? I know I've done this for over 20 years. I was a Pulitzer nominee. I've got a little bit of, experience in the business, and I look and I can't tell. And were you aware that 2 of the most recent Sports Illustrated covers were created by an iPhone? And don't you think that person got paid as well? How are you going to educate yourself to know who is a legitimate vendor and who is not? Thank you.
Thank you. You got that note?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's a good point. Thank you very much. Betty?
Betty Letcher, Letcher. First, I want to comment that Brian is doing a great job. Every time I call him, he calls me back. It may take a day or 2, but he does call. But I do want to say what the Turtle Watch people were saying. That Friday that we were going to have the storm coming in, I never go to the beach, and I live right next to 19 acres of public beach. I walk down on the walkover, and there's 3 fires that's going to be going that night. And I did talk to the guy, and he had 2 of them. Well, the surf was really coming in, and the worst part, I'm not talking about the fires, I'm talking about the fact that all the vendors were having, I mean, there was truck after truck. It was extremely dangerous, very dangerous. And I have read recently where other people complained about that. My thing would be, why do they have to have a truck? Why don't they just, if they're at a beach access, that they get their things that way, or never store them on the beach, period. That would be a good thing. Then my other thing, around the corner from where I live, there is an event house. Now, I don't know if there's an ordinance like that when you have an event and your people are coming in and they're going to do a reception and get married on the beach, that they're coming in and using the public parking. My understanding in Bay County, they have to do off-site. If you're using your house, you shouldn't be able to come in and use all that parking. And if you call code enforcement, they'll tag the cars, but then the next day the cars are gone. So I really feel that I don't know if it's an ordinance yet or not, but I think that would be a good one. So thank you.
Thank you, Betty. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, how do we want to proceed? Do we want to go through item by item, or do we just want each person to kind of say what's
I think we need to do that at the next meeting.
Okay, at the next BCC meeting?
Yeah, take and put all these together.
Yeah.
And come around and talk to us, and then we'll give recommendations. Absolutely, that sounds great. Okay, seeing no more comments, then we're ready to adjourn. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Adjourn.